The little girl's voice cut through the crowded restaurant like a bolt of lightning. "Mommy said you're my real dad." Every conversation stopped, every fork froze in midair, and for one impossible moment, time itself seemed to stand still. A handsome young architect named Rowan Mercer sat across from a woman he had met only 20 minutes earlier on a blind date. He had been politely listening to her talk about her career when he suddenly felt a tiny hand resting on his shoulder. When he turned around, he saw a little girl no older than 6 years old standing beside him. Her curly brown hair was slightly messy from the afternoon breeze. Her large hazel eyes shimmered with innocence, and those eyes were staring directly into his soul. Before anyone could react, the child repeated the words, "Mommy said you're my real dad." The restaurant fell silent, even the musicians near the window stopped playing. Rowan felt his heart pound violently against his chest. That if you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Corner. Your support helps these stories reach people who need hope the most. The little girl stood there patiently, completely unaware of the storm she had just unleashed. A young woman suddenly rushed across the restaurant. Her face had gone completely pale, her breathing was uneven. The moment Rowan saw her, something strange happened. A memory flashed through his mind. A summer afternoon. A lakeside town. A girl laughing under golden sunlight. A promise whispered between two young hearts, and then silence, years of silence. The woman reached the child and gently placed her hands on her shoulders. Her eyes slowly lifted toward Rowan. For several seconds neither of them spoke. The years disappeared, the distance vanished, and suddenly they weren't strangers anymore. Her name was Celine Hartwell, the first woman Rowan had ever truly loved. 7 years earlier, Rowan and Celine had met during their final year of university. They were young, hopeful, certain they would spend their futures together. They dreamed about everything. A house, careers, children. A life built side by side, but life rarely follows the plans written by young hearts. A month before graduation, Rowan's father suffered a devastating stroke. His family business collapsed almost overnight, medical bills mounted rapidly, responsibility crashed into Rowan's life with brutal force. He dropped everything to help his family survive. The pressure consumed him, calls became less frequent, messages went unanswered, the relationship slowly cracked beneath the weight of circumstances neither of them understood. Then came the misunderstanding that destroyed everything. A mutual acquaintance falsely told Celine that Rowan had moved away and become involved with another woman. Heartbroken and humiliated, she walked away before giving him a chance to explain. Meanwhile, Rowan believed Celine had simply stopped loving him. Within months they vanished from each other's lives. Years passed, pain became memory, memory became silence. At least that's what Rowan thought. Now Celine stood before him once again, and beside her stood a little girl who looked uncannily familiar. The same eyes, the same smile, the same dimple that appeared when she tried not to grin. Rowan felt the room spinning. The blind date quietly excused herself and left, sensing she was witnessing something far bigger than an awkward misunderstanding. Celine gently guided the little girl toward a nearby chair. Tears had already begun gathering in her eyes. Outside the restaurant windows, bright afternoon sunlight illuminated the city streets. People walked by unaware that 3 lives were being changed forever. Celine finally explained. After their separation, she had discovered she was pregnant. She had tried finding Rowan, repeatedly, but he had moved while helping his family. Phone numbers changed, addresses disappeared. Years passed without answers. Eventually she stopped searching, not because she wanted to, because she had no choice. She raised her daughter alone, worked 2 jobs, sacrificed sleep, sacrificed dreams, sacrificed everything. The little girl's name was Maribel, and according to every date, every timeline, every fact, Rowan was her father. The revelation struck him like a tidal wave. He stared at Maribel. She stared back with complete trust. No fear. No anger. No resentment. Just curiosity. As if she had always known this moment would arrive. As if she had been waiting her entire life for it. Rowan's eyes filled with tears. For years he had buried himself in work. His family business eventually recovered. His career flourished. He purchased a beautiful apartment, built financial security, achieved every professional goal he once dreamed about. Yet every success had felt strangely incomplete. There had always been an emptiness he couldn't explain. Now he understood why. He wasn't missing something, he was missing someone. The following weeks transformed everything. Rowan cautiously entered Maribel's life. At first he feared rejection. He feared awkwardness. He feared the years he had lost. But children often understand what adults complicate. Maribel welcomed him without hesitation. She showed him her drawings, her favorite books, her collection of tiny toy animals. She proudly introduced him to her friends. She spoke about him as if he had always belonged. Every moment filled Rowan with equal parts joy and heartbreak. Joy because he had finally found his daughter, heartbreak because he had missed 6 precious years. 6 birthdays. 6 Christmas mornings. 6 years of scraped knees, bedtime stories, and first steps, things no father could ever reclaim. One afternoon Rowan attended Maribel's school recital. Parents filled the auditorium, children nervously waited backstage. When Maribel walked onto the stage, she immediately searched the audience. Her eyes found Rowan, and she smiled. That smile nearly broke him, because for the first time in her life, she knew her father was watching, not missing, not absent. Watching. Present. Proud. Real. As months passed, Rowan and Celine slowly rebuilt trust. The wounds of the past remained, but understanding replaced blame. Both had suffered, both had lost years, both had carried invisible pain. Neither had truly stopped caring. One evening they sat together at a park while Maribel played nearby. Beneath the golden afternoon sun, the day felt peaceful, simple, honest. For the first time in years, silence between them felt comfortable. Celine admitted how frightened she had been raising a child alone, the financial struggles, the sleepless nights, the uncertainty, the loneliness. Rowan listened carefully, not defending himself, not making excuses, simply listening. Sometimes healing begins not with answers but with understanding. The seasons changed. Spring became summer, summer became autumn, and little by little, a broken family began finding its way back together. Then came the day that changed everything. Maribel's school organized a family heritage project. Each child was asked to create a presentation about the people they loved most. When presentation day arrived, parents gathered inside the classroom. Maribel stood at the front holding a large poster board. Pictures covered every corner, photos of her mother, photos of Rowan, photos of family outings, photos of ordinary moments transformed into treasured memories. She looked nervous, then she began speaking. Her small voice filled the room. She talked about her mother's strength, her kindness, her sacrifices. Then she talked about Rowan, how he taught her to ride a bicycle, how he helped with homework, how he never missed important events anymore, how he always listened. By the time she finished, many parents were wiping tears from their eyes. Then Maribel said one final sentence. A sentence so simple yet powerful that nobody in the room forgot it. I used to think families were the people you start with. Now I think families are the people who find their way back to each other. The room erupted into applause. Rowan felt tears streaming freely down his face. Beside him, Celine was crying too, because in that moment they realized something extraordinary. Love had survived, not perfectly, not easily, but it had survived. Years later, whenever people asked Rowan about the most important day of his life, they expected him to mention a business achievement or professional milestone. He always shook his head. His answer never changed. It was the afternoon a little girl interrupted a blind date and stopped time. The afternoon he discovered that fate had been quietly protecting a miracle he never knew existed. The afternoon a tiny voice gave him back his future. And as the years continued to unfold, Rowan, Celine, and Maribel built the life they had once lost, not because life suddenly became perfect, but because they chose forgiveness over bitterness, hope over regret, love over fear. Before we reach the end of this story, I have a special request for you. Comment the word "found" if you believe the people meant for your life can find their way back, no matter how much time has passed, and if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and leave a comment below. Your engagement helps spread messages of hope, healing, and second chances to people who may need them today, because sometimes life doesn't give us the ending we planned, sometimes it gives us something far more beautiful. A second beginning. And on a bright afternoon that began with an ordinary blind date, a little girl reminded 3 hearts of a truth the world often forgets. The strongest families are not always the ones that stay together from the start, sometimes they are the ones that fight their way back to each other, one miracle at a time. And in the warm daylight shining through the restaurant windows where it all began, time finally started moving again. But this time, it carried them forward together.